Hi guys, my name's Madison. I'm one of the PAs here at Advanced Women's Healthcare, and I'm coming to you today to talk with you a little bit more about pap smears. Pap smears is probably something you heard of, but maybe you don't know fully or don't completely understand what goes on during a pap smear. So I'm here to answer some of those common questions. A pap smear is a simple procedure that's done here in the office. It's something I do all day, every day. It's used as a screening test for cervical cancer. So what we do, we have you come in, we use a speculum, which looks like this, that gets put into the vagina and opened so we can see the end of the vagina, which is where the cervix is located. The cervix is at the end of your uterus and kind of the entry point into your uterus. We use a brush that looks like this. That brush gets put down through the speculum and touches the surface of the cervix. We do a brushing of that surface of the cervix, which collects some of the cells that can be then sent off to the lab to be tested. Those cells are tested for any abnormality that may be a precursor or early sign of cervical cancer. Pap smears start at age 21 and should be done every 3 years as long as they are normal. The regulations for how often, when to start, how long to do them is something that is constantly changing in the world of medicine. And so this is a discussion you should have with your provider to better determine what schedule you should be on as far as your routine screening for pap smears. Under the age of 30, the pap smear is only testing for those cervical cancer cells. So it's testing those cervical cells, looking for any abnormality. There is a large range of what is considered abnormal and many steps before you get to cervical cancer. Our goal as your medical provider is to catch you in those early stages of abnormality so that we can intervene and prevent against the progression to cervical cancer. After the age of 30, we not only screen for those cervical cancer cells, but we're also looking for the HPV virus, or the human papilloma virus. There are hundreds of strains of the human papilloma virus, but certain strains are at a higher risk for causing cervical cancer. And those are the types of strains that we are wanting to screen you for. So over the age of 30, every time we do a pap smear, we test both for the cells as well as the HPV virus. If either are abnormal, we can then intervene with additional imaging. The most common next step is something called a colposcopy, and that may be something that we as your provider recommend. It's not a procedure to be alarmed at or a procedure to be scared of. It's, again, a very common procedure that we do in the office. It allows us to take a more in-depth look at the cervix. It's done very similarly to a pap smear. So again, we're going to use a speculum, gets inserted into the vagina, and then we're able to spray a vinegar solution onto the cervix. Vinegar, when it comes in contact with any abnormal cells on the cervix, will turn those abnormal cells white and allow us as the provider to see that change, and we can decide whether you need to have additional biopsies or testing done of that cervix. This allows us again to look for any abnormal cells, precancerous, or early signs of cervical cancer. After a colposcopy, we will give you certain recommendations and restrictions to activity, but it's usually not that invasive. We also will recommend a repeat pap smear sooner than that 3 to 5 years like we were talking about earlier. Our office still does a pap smear even after a hysterectomy or even after menopause. We believe that if you have the parts, I should still be screening them. So again, this is a conversation that we can have that's a little bit more personal to you in the office. But pap smears are a very common thing, not something that you should be scared of, and something that you should be on a routine schedule for, as it is the only way to prevent against cervical cancer. If you guys have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you for your annual